Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Touchline to the Takes. From the Touchline to the Takes, that is us. Cameron Reed joins me once again. Look at him go, and he crushes it over his head.
It's all done. That was it.
All done.
One sip.
Just a sip of that beer. He's such a lightweight. He's already drunk. We got to look out for this podcast. You're gonna have a fun one producing and turning down the levels on that when you put it together.
Already messed up the levels entirely.
But if you guys haven't given up yet, if you guys haven't turned us off because of that start to the podcast, seriously, welcome back. You know, we enjoy all our listeners. Every single one of you. Cameron, we hit 400 listens this past week.
It's funny because it's like some people are getting that. A lot of people are getting that in one episode. But hey, you know, milestone's a milestone. We made
milestones. I remember when we hit our first 100, we were talking about it. And now we hit 400. We've come such a long way. We've grown. Mm-hmm. We've grown together. We're the embodiment of, you know, adversity.
We're the embodiment of what we talk about in a way. We're the minor league of podcasts. We're the Division 4 unsanctioned league of podcasts.
Oh, but we love all our listeners all the same. You know, we do appreciate you. We're not just trying to make fun of, you know, not getting a lot of listens.
Trying to make fun a little bit.
We're trying to make fun a little bit. But anyways, guys, we got a great episode for you. As always, we hope that you checked out our last episode, which was an interview, all things Canadian soccer. If you haven't checked it out, go listen to it. If you're interested in the CPL or any of that stuff, I highly recommend. Ollie Pratt, who we talked to, was fantastic.
Great guy, yeah. We had a good time. He was
really good. We had a great time discussing these things with him. We have more big things on the way that we will tell you about here shortly. But before we get into the stuff we want to talk about today, Cameron,
What are we talking about today? Yeah.
What are we talking about today? Well,
you just called me up and you're like, "Hey, let's do a podcast." And I was like, "What's going on?
What's going on? We going to talk about football? We going to talk about what is that you're drinking, Cameron? We
can start off with that. Today's podcast is not sponsored by Proof 850 IPA. It's delicious. I don't care if it's sponsored or not. I'll still give them the spotlight. I guess I'll go over sort of what we're talking about today. So we got a couple different. We promised that we would come back to the domestic front today. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about USL, NISA, MLS, because today's stories kind of cover all of those leagues. Nobody's really left out. We got the MLS starting a new third division league. Allegedly, it's looking pretty serious. So I think we can have a good conversation about that. Prior to that, some news we never really got a chance to talk about was USSF ending their relationship with Soccer United Marketing, which is more or less MLS, who had served as the sort of commercial rights owners and distributors of the men's national team. It's, you know, we got that to talk about, and we might even just dive a little bit into the beginning of the season here for USL, NISA, and MLS. So yeah, you know, we're gonna really get back to the old home front here after, you know, a little tour to Europe and a little tour to Canada.
Right, and we'll get back to our roots, as they call them, right? We're returning to that. You like that? That was good.
Well, I was gonna say Oakland. Also, I went to an NPSL game for the first time in person last weekend and saw Tallahassee Soccer Club play Florida Roots. No affiliation with Oakland Roots, but apparently that's a popular team name these days. So that was a lot of fun. It was good to see a little local soccer action and quite a crowd actually. So that was pretty.
That's what you were telling me, because I was texting with you and you said it was a really decent crowd for.
I don't know the full attendance numbers, but I would have to say it was at least 700. I could be wrong. But I think for NPSL, that's pretty good. I think if NPSL games are hitting, 4 figures, can't complain about that.
No, definitely. That's definitely big numbers. Cameron, I don't even know where to begin with this. Namaste, right? Namaste, we because before we could end up, we gave that lowdown of what we're going to talk about today. We could end up rambling about this MLS thing for probably about an hour and not even get to everything else. But before we do that, for those of you who didn't see, as Cameron mentioned, the MLS is looking to start up some third tier sort of league in the coming years. Really nothing's officially official yet, but it does feel like MLS is pretty determined to kick this thing off. They want it, to sort of produce their younger talent, the club's youth academies. Reportedly, there's a lot of clubs already backing this who are involved.
So it seems, yeah.
So it seems. But at the same time, all of us who thought the Super League, and we're so nervous about that came all crashing down. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. I mean, history shows the MLS seems pretty hell-bent at, not giving anything to USL or NISA and kind of doing things their own way, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, so I think, this story is sort of best suited to give a little bit of background in terms of maybe what led to this move and also what we can sort of expect from this league if it comes to fruition. What it seems like is, so MLS, I think we discussed this a while back, when the USSF ended the Development Academy program, MLS stepped in with MLS Next, their super catchy development league.
Super catchy.
And I think what they've been kind of witnessing is that they're sort of 2 teams, they're reserve teams. They're getting pushed out of the USL Championship. I think it's fair to say that the USL Championship is content with getting rid of the 2 teams, probably pushing them down to League One. My guess is that this league that they're creating, MLS, is intended to sort of serve a purpose as a place to house the 2 teams. Now, from what we've read and what we've seen, there's a little more to the story than that. It's not supposed to be necessarily a U23 league, so it's not going to necessarily have any age limits on these teams. There's a potential for independent clubs being a part of this league, which I think that's where the line was sort of crossed. If this was just simply an MLS reserve league, then I don't think anyone would be worried. I think it would honestly make a lot of sense for MLS, but it's the potential for independent teams, and just in general the direct competition with USL that I think it's a lot of people worried.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's the reason I think everybody's worried is just because of the money, obviously, MLS has, and the money, unfortunately, the USL doesn't have. The MLS, if they get this thing up and running, if it can gain legs, if it can get moving, could really push the USL and NISA, sort of out the door just financially. Yeah. And, take everything that these leagues are trying to do and just sort of, pull the rug up underneath them, and either those leagues start from scratch or they just fold and go under. So that's the question right now is how much competition is MLS willing to, or are they planning to turn up? Like what exactly is their plan? Are they trying to kill off USL League One? Are they going to? I think we'll really know if those independent clubs come to fruition and they start fighting in the same markets that USL is already located in. That's when it's going to really get scary, and especially if you're seeing any of these clubs get sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Subsidized by the MLS clubs. So say Minnesota United comes in and they want to get a club in
I don't know, Green Bay, Wisconsin, and they want to put a team in there. Well, they can already subsidize that. So that's already putting them on a different playing field than most of your other USL League One clubs, like Forward Madison, for example. So it's a scary thought. And I've seen a lot of, I don't know what you're kind of thinking about this, but I've seen a lot of people come to the conclusion that if this does come to fruition, the best sort of scenario for USL is to work with NISA, that they have no other choice at this point than to join forces.
No, definitely. Strength in numbers, right? And I think if this thing starts gaining traction, it's better to kind of combine and get together almost immediately rather than wait for them to gain any sort of momentum into this sort of thing. That's tough too, because I don't know if USL and NISA would work together. I think they're definitely the chances of USL and NISA working together are probably the better chances than MLS and USL ever working together. And that's just, I think, an unfortunate fact right now. Yeah. But still, like, I think you're going to have the MLS starting to delve down into these lower leagues with themselves, with the clubs that have all these financial capabilities. And it's going to be like a 3-horse race trying to, take control of these markets and take control of this lower league market. And I don't know, man. It's a scary thought. It's really frightening. And I feel like the MLS has been waiting a long time to do something like this. You saw it when they pulled their, when these clubs started to pull their, Atlanta United 2, Philadelphia Union 2, when they started to pull out of these things. It's I don't even know.
Yeah, and I think the worry is, obviously we don't have promotion and relegation right now, but the speculation seems to be that if this league comes to fruition, and I know I keep saying that, but I think it's important that we sort of hold out some hope that this is not really going to have the impact that we think it is. But if it does, it seems like a good indication that the MLS is setting up their sort of 3-tier system that has no future of promotion and relegation. No. This is just them setting up their own developmental sort of pipeline, from MLS Next to the the whatever this Division 3 league ends up being into MLS. So we've heard from NISA, for example, that they do want to end up setting up promotion and relegation. And I think USL, although they've been a little bit more coy on the topic, I think that would be their ultimate goal as well. And if MLS comes in here and completely stiff arms them, I think the worry is that we'll never see this happen because there will be no point in competing anymore.
No.
And that's like, I think a lot of people also feel that this is sort of an evil attack by MLS, which has worked so well with USL for years, only to now come in direct competition with them. USL has
kind of
served them well.
Them in the back.
Yeah. And it's not like USL didn't provide these reserve teams with a high quality of play. These reserve teams were sitting in the bottom of the USL tables for the majority. Obviously there's some standouts, but it's not like they haven't had a good competition.
It's crazy. I feel like every single week I see some sort of post about, this player in the MLS for a club scoring a goal, and then there's some statistics to back up him 2-3 years ago playing in the USL, scoring goals in the USL. You had it this year with the El Paso Locomotives goalkeeper, who's actually on his way back to El Paso now, but he went to Portland Timbers for a short time when they needed a goalkeeper, and he came up with huge saves. He had, a clean sheet. He's the first, I think, goalkeeper in MLS history. I think it was to save a penalty and to keep a clean sheet, or something. There was some crazy stat like that.
Yeah.
But it's, the competition has always been there, and the players, their talent level has always been there at the USL.
Right. I think it's kind of like, there's no reason to go after USL unless they feel threatened, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point there, that maybe the MLS is starting to feel threatened. I mean, the way you could sort of look at this, league they're trying to set up is like the, what is it now, the G League in the NBA or something?
Right, exactly,
like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, for our listeners who aren't like used to American sports, it's a very Americanized way to have a professional sports team, to have a professional organization. With baseball, you have minor league systems, where players come up through, they develop, and then they make it up to the big leagues. NBA, the players who aren't ready, they have the G League. And it seems like the MLS, what they're trying to do is, this exact same thing. They have their sort of leagues, and the players who aren't ready, instead of having them in the youth academies or playing U18s or whatever, they'll just play in this league until they're ready. And to your point too, like the USL has served the MLS so well over the years. I mean, you look at even some of the clubs who have come up through the USL are now playing in the MLS.
Right. Yeah, it served as an incubator, when and really, what has the USL received from MLS for serving that purpose? Not much. Nothing. They're not getting any of that, expansion fee.
Not even for the players either. Like, how many times have we discussed on this podcast how often USL teams or USL clubs get ripped off, by either like transfer fees or whatever you want to call it when they go to the MLS. Like, it seems like the USL has made an incredible amount of progress in the situation and in like sort of the deck of cards they've been handed by the MLS. And it just seems like now the MLS is like, you know what, like, you've served whatever purpose they wanted them to serve, and now they're just tossing them away.
Exactly. And I think we should move a little bit towards a league we haven't really talked about that much here in this discussion, but I think it's pivotal that we do. So as we've said, this league that MLS is trying to create would be a Division III league. So currently you have USL League One and you have NISA, and we have not really talked about the implications for NISA. But I think USL, at least their championship level, I think that's pretty stable. NISA's only been around for a couple seasons, and you can even say that that's barely a couple seasons because of how they've had to play. They've had the Independent Cup, which that's actually an interesting thing we can talk about a little bit later. But I mean, NISA seems like this is going to hurt them the most. They're just starting to get off the ground with some of their concepts, like NISA Nation, which I think is excellent. And I think might be their best bargaining chip with any sort of talks with USL on the matter. But, they've got one club right now that's running on life support, Stumptown. It's pretty much run by the league. There's, you can only really say that probably Chattanooga, Detroit, maybe Cal United are probably in the best stability-wise.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Cal United has a team potentially playing in the MLS Next sort of thing, so that's a concern to me as well, that could just draw that whole first team away to begin with. Right. So I'm worried, man. They barely have the teams to survive as it is. I really like the idea of NISA. I'm not sure if you just have thoughts on that in general, but I'd kind of like to talk about what potentially USL and NISA could agree on. Maybe like what they each bring to the table in that sort of equation, and what that could look like, if you want to maybe try to brainstorm on that.
Yeah, I think for both USL, I think you made a good point with the NISA Nation thing. I think that's their chip moving forward. Like, if they want to do any sort of like, hey, USL, like, and I think it would be NISA coming to the USL, like you said, because I feel like, as nervous and worried we are about the USL, you made a good point that they're pretty stable. They have years of sort of, I wouldn't call them completely stable, especially if something like this happens, but they're definitely more stable than NISA is. Plus you add on the pandemic and everything that's happened in the last year for, this league. I think they have to bring that to the table, and kind of use it as a way to say, hey, like, if we come together, if we join forces, have some of their clubs enter into, they sort of come together as a league, but I think it would still be like USL. I would feel like USL would sort of absorb them more than anything.
Yeah, I think there would have to be some reconsiderations in terms of, because as much as we like USL, it does function very similar to how MLS does.
Right.
I believe it's single entity. I could be wrong. It might function a little bit different than how MLS's single entity does. They at least definitely have the ability to make some different decisions than MLS clubs do. But right. It's more centrally organized than NISA is, where it's more focused on the club structure. So they would have to make some concessions in that department. I'm not sure how that would work. My guess is that if any of these teams were to say be admitted into the USL structure, they would likely go into USL League One, which I don't think is a bad thing, especially if they wanted to test out promotion and relegation sooner rather than later. You have some good contenders, as I've said, with Detroit City and Chattanooga.
Definitely.
But I think it gets interesting when we consider how do they implement NISA Nation into this whole format. Maybe it's actually not that difficult of a question. USL already has League Two. And there's been a lot of calls to make League Two into more of a year-round league rather than its sort of summer schedule, strictly a U23 college player development, not having to sign any professional contracts so that they don't lose that status. That's a lot of clubs, so that could work well right into the NISA Nation program. And there's clearly one other, as I mentioned, NPSL. I went to see a game with a couple NPSL teams. They've got a wide range of teams too who could be capable of slotting into that. And I think NPSL has to be worrying right now about the implications of this. They're not a third division league, but if any of those clubs have ambitions moving forward, I'm sure NPSL is going to be considering what's best for them. Do they join up with MLS or do they join up with this system?
No, definitely they have to. And I think the unfortunate fact we kind of have to come to the realization to as well is, there's going to be some casualties, for back of the letter, sort of phrase, when it comes to this. Like, not all these clubs are gonna survive, I think, especially in NISA and the NPSL. I mean, some of these clubs are going to be lucky to survive, even without this, MLS league moving forward in its development. So I think it will be good. I would rather the NPSL as well kind of look towards joining up with the USL.
That would be the meeting of the minds if they all got
all
together.
Three of those coming together, man, and strength in numbers. Like I said before, it's got to be strength in numbers if you're going to take on the MLS, because the MLS doesn't seem willing to, reach out their hand and help some of these clubs or some of these leagues, back up. Like, they want to get rid of the competition.
Well, and I will mention as well, I haven't, for some of you who are really deep in the culture, you're probably wondering, all right, why haven't you said anything about UPSL up to this point? Well, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, but I did read something from the Protagonist podcast, and there was an article written saying that they had a source that said that UPSL was leaning more towards joining up with this new MLS league. I cannot verify anything on that. Nobody's released any full sources. Nobody official has talked about it in really any capacity. So I don't know, but I do find that a little strange, as UPSL has incorporated promotion and relegation into some of their regional leagues. But, once again, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, you're probably going to go with the more safe bet, which is MLS, unfortunately, for better or for worse. But
for worse.
Probably for worse. I would much prefer to see UPSL, NPSL, NISA, and USL all join forces and and fight against MLS. And I think I've been cruising through Reddit, just looking at every single take I can get on this. And somebody suggested that, hey, better now than ever. Let's move up the top teams from USL Championship. Mm-hmm. Let's make USL Premier, and let's fight them.
That's interesting.
I don't know commercially how well that would do.
Right.
I don't know if it makes sense to do something like that and hop into MLS markets that already exist and say, all right, if you're going to fight us, we're going to put a team right in your market.
It's so difficult because like I want to sit here and I want to be like, let's do it. Let's take the fight to them.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, kind of coming to the realization that that's probably not possible to happen.
No,
financially.
And I think this is something that I'm not super familiar with. I know about it. I know it exists, but I couldn't really tell you too much about it. There are the PLS that sort of make this difficult. So the PLS are the professional league standards from USSF. Now, if you ask me, the way these were drafted just seems like something that was created to protect MLS.
Right.
So there's a couple different standards. One, and so each division on the pyramid has their own PLS standards. So like ownership, net worth being one of them for each different tier. Like the stadium size, like how many people it can hold. The metro area population. So
right.
That's kind of one of the things that makes this difficult for USL to really fight MLS is they've got to meet that Division 1 standard. And good luck getting USSF to sanction another Division 1 league.
No way.
Yeah, that's unless we get some drastic changes on who's in USSF. Good luck.
No, like that's not. I mean, MLS, USSF are they're a tight knit group. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no way. And I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, and don't get me wrong, like for those of you who are listening, we're not hating on the MLS here. The MLS has made
Carl's
some
literally wearing an MLS jersey, so let's address that.
Minnesota United. So the MLS has made some great strides in the last decade when it comes to themselves as a league. The growth that they've done, I think they're moving out of that whole sort of like nursing home for old European talent and more into producing their own young talent. And I think you're starting to really see like the fruition of that, of these youth academies MLS clubs have. So I don't see them sanctioning another big league, especially with, sort of the progress in the track the MLS is going on. I would really hope that maybe, and I don't know if this would ever happen, but the USSF kind of steps in if this does come, because like competition, you know what I mean? Like why would you want to get rid of like competition and more ways to be able to develop young American talents?
I'm surprised they're allowing a third division sanctioning. I remember them having issues with NASL 2.0 sanctioning them as a second Division 2 league. So obviously we can just put this down to there's plenty of people in the USSF that are in cahoots with MLS. So it's really not a surprise. It's a lot of doom and gloom, but I think that actually lends a nice segue to us to talk about Soccer United
more doom
marketing,
and gloom.
or more doom and gloom, or Soccer United marketing and USSF ending their 20-year relationship, which is pretty amazing. So if you're not familiar, Soccer United marketing is essentially just the commercial arm of MLS. So if you want to think about it this way, it's literally just a media arm that all the owners of the MLS clubs have a stake in. And for decades, they had a relationship with the USSF, which meant they could pretty much get all the rights to the United States men's national team games, I believe even the women's team as well. They got the rights to it, they packaged it up, and then they resold it. And typically they did that with the MLS rights as well. And that's sort of what gave them some leverage to get some better TV deals. But USSF has ended their deal with them. I believe it ends officially in 2023. I can't be too sure on that. I believe the current deal runs through the end of 2022. Yep. So in the beginning of 2023 is when they would be looking for a new deal. So pretty much what this means is that the USSF will now be able to sell the rights to those games on their own. That could mean a lot of things. Could mean the federation gets more money. I think a lot of people were hoping this meant a shift in how the USSF treated the landscape. You know, it wasn't so much showing favoritism to MLS, but I don't know, man. What do you think?
So 2023 isn't the end of 2022 into 2023. Isn't that when they were talking about starting up this sort of third division as well? So, yeah. I mean, I don't want to be trying to read tarot cards here and read, the tea leaves, but the fact that this news sort of came within the sort of the same like time scope, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
I think it's interesting right now to contemplate what the next MLS TV deal will look like without being able to package it with United States men's national team and women's national team rights. I think if we see a decline in their ability to market themselves, that's going to be interesting, and that could potentially be dangerous for MLS. Especially since it seems like they're continuing to rely on the expansion fees to sort of cover their finances. I think we could certainly do a case study on what overall MLS finances would look like if they hadn't been continuing to see these expansion fees year over year. And I think we keep hearing from Don Garber that, this is where we're gonna stop at this amount of teams. But I think his willingness to continue to expand past those numbers might be indicative of how the overall MLS financial system works. So this break with USSF, I don't think it's really going to lead to any drastic changes in how the pyramid works, or PLS, for example, as we were just talking about. But I think it could actually be good for grassroots development. If USSF is pulling in more money from the sales of the rights to these games, then they could reinvest that. I don't have a lot of faith in them to reinvest that well, especially with the shutdown of the development academy. But there's potential for it at the very least. Man, I would freaking hope that they could do something about PLS, but they won't.
No,
just saying it.
Well, I mean, we can be as optimistic as we want for them to do the right thing, and they're just going to do the complete opposite of what we hope for them to do. It's happened throughout history. It's not going to stop happening. I mean, the day that happens is the day, I don't know. I can't think of something so crazy just because I know it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, do we really have to look any further than the USSF board of directors? I mean, Don Garber's on the board of directors. It's, even if Sum is no longer a part of that relationship, he's still there. He's
still there. It's not going to change. He is on that board of directors, and then when Don Garber steps down and the new MLS commissioner takes over, they will probably be on the board of, it's gonna be just a snowball just continuing to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, I mean, technically he's on the pro council representative portion, and I don't know, man. It's all too intertwined. I don't have a lot of faith in that.
No, it's really unfortunate because there's so much potential within the USL, and we talk about it all the time, that I feel like sometimes we lose our voice because us and other people who see it too are just screaming at these guys just open your eyes. Just look. Like, it's right in front of you, and yet you keep trying to do the same things. Like, what's gonna happen here? What is going to happen here is they're going to form this new third-tier league.
Yeah.
They're going to make USL. They're going to make NISA. They're going to make the NPSL. They're going to make all these all these leagues go under because they're going to push them out financially. They're going to basically suffocate them.
Yeah.
And then this third-tier league's going to fold within 5 years.
Well, yeah, nobody's coming to watch MLS 2 teams anyways. They get the lowest attendance in USL. And they're... It's not even close.
What kind of like TV rights are you going to get for these guys? Are you really going to watch 15, 16, 17-year-olds play? Like, I mean, maybe I will because I'm interested in that, but you're not going to...
No, yeah, they're not going to get the media deal for a third-tier league. You're not going to be pulling crowds like what Forward Madison can do, or and NISA what Chattanooga and Detroit can do.
Because these clubs aren't going to be like, and we've talked about it again. Another thing we've discussed is these clubs are intertwined with their communities. Yep. When we talk to the Orange County, Oliver Weiss, he talked about that. We discussed that thoroughly, that how much the community in Orange County is kind of intertwined with the club, and the club intertwined with them. If you have some third-tier team, in upstate New York that's owned by New York, by Red Bulls or by NYCFC, they're not gonna care about that community development.
I will caution you on that, just because I think there's a potential. They clearly haven't seen this potential and haven't done much with it, but there is a culture of minor league sports in the United States, and there is a culture of minor league sports teams being fairly entrenched within their communities in the United States. Where we've both lived in Portland, Maine, both the Sea Dogs and the Red Claws do a pretty good job at that. So if these MLS clubs buy teams like that and put the focus on the community, that's when things are going to get difficult. But right now, they've shown that they don't care about that. It's purely for development reasoning is that they have these teams to begin with.
Right.
But anyways,
do you think, before we change the subject, because that got me thinking, do you think there's ever a scenario where the MLS, if this does get going, if things look like they're going to be trouble for, the USL, NISA, that these MLS clubs will look to these USL clubs to kind of, not like take them over, but kind of use them exactly, instead of starting from scratch? Would they ever look at, say, like Cincinnati looks at Louisville City because they're so close or Forward Madison and Minnesota, maybe? I'm trying to think do you think that's ever a scenario?
I think it depends on how much money they are willing to put into a second team. I think that these USL Championship clubs especially are showing that they're putting in a lot more money just to run these clubs, to run the facilities that they're utilizing. If MLS just wants to simply have a team in a league playing for the sake of development, they're gonna spend the bare minimum. So I don't quite see that happening. I think that's a little too expensive for their tastes. But stranger things have happened. That's a pipe dream, I guess. That's a best case scenario from a worst case scenario. Sort of thing to happen, but definitely. So, best case scenario, if we've got, hearts filled with sunshine today, I think the best case scenario is that NISA, USL, NPSL, maybe even UPSL all get together, have a meeting, make a strategy. They don't even have to do anything immediately, right? They just have to come up with a strategy. If things are getting bad, they've got to come up with a plan.
And they have to be prepared before it happens. You know what I mean? They can't get caught, sort of blindsided by this when it does finally become official and the ball gets rolling with whatever's going to happen, if it does happen. It's one right now. It's only the article from The Athletic, right? That kind of talks about this.
NBC. I did see they put out an official article. Yeah, it's interesting.
The rumors are there, but again, I mean, what was it? Was it last year or something when those, USL, MLS 2 teams were kind of pulling out.
Yeah,
that they were talking about starting their own league.
Yep.
And there's rumblings about that, which in fact that they tried to do before and it failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
And then, USL opened, let them back in with open arms. So it'll be interesting. I think
this could fizzle out to nothing. It certainly could.
It really could. And, that would, I think, be the absolute rainbow sunshine best case scenario in this situation, because not only are we biased and we love USL and NISA, but the competition, and the it just makes it so much better to have that in this country, because especially
I don't want it to be sterile. I don't want MLS teams to just be funding these. If you want a community club, you want a community club, and I think you also want that community club to stick around. I mean, these MLS teams could just move them around at will, as we've seen with a lot of minor league sports teams in the United States. So
exactly.
It's going to be difficult. I think the only way that we really fight this, if it does move forward, is those changing PLS. They've got to implement promotion and relegation to just build that fire. Find some way to do it. I don't care if that requires insulating the USL Championship for a couple of years and trying it at the Tier 3 and Tier 4 level. But please, we've got to do something. Anyways, how about would you like to skip on over to one of my favorite scandals right now in the MLS?
Tax evasion? Do we have more tax evasion?
More or less. That's what this is. David Beckham gets a team for what? I think he got that expansion fee of $30 million for Inter Miami, and he's like, "Let's cheat, baby! Let's cheat! Let's do it!" He's like, "Let's sign all my buddies. Let's cheat the heck out of this league and not win a goddamn thing, because I'm David Beckham, and it doesn't matter because we're selling T-shirts, baby."
And they got that brand new stadium coming too, and it's just like he doesn't give a shit about that club. I mean, it's funny that I knew exactly what you were talking about, and pretty close, because it's like peanut butter and jelly, right? You have football and tax evasion, or football and some sort of greedy bribery money sort of thing. Like it's peanut butter and jelly, man, when it comes to this sport.
It's great, man. This story is just like blowing. It keeps getting better, and I'll kind of get there in a second. So we've had these designated player or DP rules for a little while now, and some teams have definitely utilized that to the fullest. Think like LA Galaxy, I'd probably say, New York City FC, but they've still stuck to the their rules. I think it's 3 DPs right now that you can have per team, and there's been TAM and GAM that have pretty much helped teams find ways to create players who are kind of in the DP area, lower them down to a salary that doesn't make them DP, and therefore they don't have to take up
under
that
the
slot.
salary cap.
Inter Miami just kind of went like, how about I'm sorry, I'm gonna we're a family friendly podcast, but Inter Miami just kind of went, fuck the rules, and they've signed 1 million DPs. Their entire roster, their academy is all DPs.
Wait. This gets even better that we're talking about this, because before we started the podcast, there's a report.
I was gonna hold off on that, but yeah.
Okay. There's a report out of Spain right now that Messi just signed his new contract with Barcelona, and in his contract clause it says in his last 2 years of his contract he has to play in Inter Miami. And I'm just like thinking, how are they gonna, because even Messi at 40 years old is gonna be like one of the most expensive players in the world still. How do you bring Messi over?
I'll tell you how. Don Garber, he walks out. Let me just do a little.
What are you doing?
Pretend I'm carrying a clipboard. MLS is very excited to not only announce the arrival of one of the most legendary players to ever play the game, Lionel Messi. Yes, we're very excited to have him. Very excited. We also are today announcing the Messi rule. It's just some sort of dumb shit rule where they find a way.
Just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like,
if you have a player that you're paying $40 million per year, we'll actually pay that for you and then pay you a lump sum on top of that. And then we'll give you 10 times the GAM you had so that you can pay your TAM. And then, we'll actually build you a new stadium while you're at it.
If your club is situated this close to the equator and the player you're signing is under 5'8" and is left-footed.
And and if you have a majority of Spanish speakers in your metropolitan area, you can actually sign as many La Liga players as you want, and it doesn't count towards your salary cap.
I'm pretty sure that's in the new ESPN deal as well for La Liga broadcast rights.
Yep.
Somehow Dan Garber and the head of Disney are, in cahoots with this. Unbelievable, man. Like, and they still can't win a goddamn game.
No, yeah. Let me just read off real quick, just so we're being officially here. So, directly from MLSsoccer.com, the violations of the salary cap rule that Miami violated include incorrect roster categorization for Blaise Matuidi, which like everyone was kind of on that wavelength. Like, you kidding me? He's not a DP? Wait, hold on.
How's that possible?
Andres Reyes, and the violations also included undisclosed agreements that resulted in the underreporting of salary budget amounts for players Leandro Gonzalez Pires, Nicolas Figuel, and Julian Carranza.
Seems we are having technical difficulties
here.
The
penalties included a $2 million fine to the club and a $250,000 fine to managing owner Jorge Mas.
Oh my God.
Yeah, great. Good job, Miami. You're really crushing it. No sponsor on the shirt to help you out. Stadium's not quite done, and you haven't won shit, and you've already violated league rules. So congrats.
They're doing it, man. Hey,
congratulations.
You know what? I think FC Cincinnati's probably looking at him like, what the hell?
Yeah, what were we doing this whole time?
FC Cincinnati's like, wait a second, should we have been doing that the whole time and not? Unbelievable.
Philly's like, wait, we don't have to play kids?
Yeah. Bob Kraft, meanwhile, is still asleep up in the press box. Like,
he's like, we have a soccer team?
Right.
Can you tell those kids to get off the field down there?
Right. Why are there only 11,000 people in this stadium? Is Brady here?
Yeah. Oh my God. I don't know where we go from there.
We have fun. We have fun making fun of the MLS. We spend 40 minutes just absolutely tearing the MLS apart, and then we spend the next 10 just pouring salt into the wounds.
Yeah.
I love the taste of MLS blood.
It's just, I think the other interesting thing is I've seen a lot of people defend this, but, there's so many, like, sometimes I enjoy watching MLS.
I do
just going to put that out there.
Right.
But there's a very interesting breed of MLS fans who are just like, without the salary cap, the league would not be competitive, and that's why European soccer is going down the drain. It's like, well, shit, man. Like, Miami just spent millions and they didn't win anything. So
they can't play shit. The MLS isn't competitive. Pull up the last 10 years of who won the MLS Cup. It's the same 3 teams, right? Timbers, Sounders, Crew.
Right.
Maybe there's a Galaxy in there somewhere. Right.
I think the MLB has been more competitive, and they don't have salary cap restrictions.
No.
So
exactly. Yeah, I don't like it. And it comes back to another thing we have talked about over and over and over and over and over again on this podcast is why do we keep trying to Americanize a sport that doesn't need to be changed? The way it was structurally built and the way it has been structured all across the globe, I shouldn't say all across, in the majority parts of the globe is that, it's
well, and it's like I don't want to get political here, but at this point we're pretty much you know how people are like, oh yeah, China's communist. They've got all these
communist air quotes.
Let me just. I'm gonna do something a little controversial here. I'm gonna compare the MLS to communist China. Now, I don't say that as MLS is communist, but let me just point out some similarities here. So China is communist, except they've got all these special economic zones where there's free trade. They can do all these different things. There's
interesting.
The rules don't quite apply in these areas. MLS, they've got the DPs. The rules don't quite apply there. They've got the GAM and the TAM, and they do all these
spam.
They do all these things to sort of circumvent the rules that they've created, and it just makes things more complicated. And I think even as a fan, it's hard to understand because things change every year. Like,
it does.
I don't even know what GAM and TAM are. Like, I sort of get it. I sort of get it. But I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert.
Every time I feel like I understand, like, the DPs and all that stuff, something changes. There's a new rule. Oh, like, this pertains to this rule unless, and that's why your imitation, Garber was so spot on, because it's like, oh, how can you afford Messi? Well, you see the Messi rule, and there's some, like, just make no rules. Just that's basically what it is anyways. Just give it no rules. No salary cap, none of this stuff. You want to see a competitive league? You look at the value of these clubs. Just imagine the players they can bring over here. You know what I mean? Just imagine the players they could really bring over here. Because I mean, these clubs aren't worth pennies. This isn't a small league we're talking about, but they are, handcuffed in what they can do. So you have clubs like Inter Miami breaking the rules, which they seem to get away with anyways.
Right.
Just let them go free. See what happens, and if it's a complete train wreck and things start crashing down, then you put the handcuffs back on. Like, why not?
I think there's ways to do it and keep the league financially solvent without imposing strict rules like a salary cap, the DP rule. I think there's definitely ways to do it. Now, am I going to sit here and provide you 10 different ways that they could?
I hope not.
And we've seen, things like FFP don't necessarily work the way they're intended.
No.
But I still think there's room to let the spending happen a little more freely in MLS.
Give them a little bit of, of slack. Like, give them, don't have to keep them on such a tight leash.
Maybe start a little more drastic raise in the salary cap. And look, if teams don't want to spend that, they don't have to spend that. I think we've seen that you can have a good product on the field if you just develop your own players. FC Dallas, great example.
100%.
The Union, they haven't been the best team, but I think they're showing that you can still field a competitive squad without paying
100%.
them world-class salaries. I would personally, I get it. People think that the only way to keep the league competitive is to keep the salaries in check. Great. But I would like to see the strategies teams would use if that wasn't the only way to keep the league competitive.
You know another way we can keep the league competitive? Another way.
Do tell.
Pro reg.
No. What's that? Tell me. Explain.
So what happens in pro reg is when you have a team that's
pro rel, you mean?
Pro reg.
Unless you're just pro regulation.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about economics there for a second. So with pro rel, what you have a team that's really, really bad.
Yes.
And this bad team gets sent to the league below.
What league would that be?
Potentially. There's a chance, and this might blow your mind, but there's already a league in the U.S. right now that could function as that second division championship. Are you messing with me? League. No, man, I'm telling you.
There's soccer besides the MLS?
There is soccer besides the MLS. It's unbelievable. But, everybody's screaming here about salary caps. Well, how about we do this because this works?
Yeah.
They'll be competitive. And then, like we've talked about, you'll have owners who care. They'll be like, hey, no way we want to go to the lower division and lose money. So let's put money into our team and break more rules if those are still in place.
Well, I think that's a good time to talk about how things are looking right now in MLS. Speaking of owners that don't care, the New England Revolution are in first place in the Eastern Conference. We talked about it a couple weeks back that they're off to a good start, and that run
Reds.
just continues. And Philadelphia is in second, and Orlando's in third. What is going on?
What is happening? We're sitting here, and then we're like, wait a second.
You got Toronto in 12th, Inter Miami in 11th. I mean, like Red Bulls in 9th, Atlanta in 8th.
Where are my boys Cincinnati at?
Topsy-turvy.
Where are they sitting?
Oh, dead last, baby.
Dead last. Woo.
I think they might
They got a beautiful
stadium. The Supporters
Shield.
They're dead last in the Supporters Shield as well.
They got a beautiful new stadium, though, man. That's all I'm gonna care about. Like, they could have the shittiest team in the world.
They just gotta cheat. You know, it's like the early 2000s, late 90s MLB, man. They just gotta juice.
Just give them some juice, man.
Cincinnati needs to juice their squad. All right.
You guys, if you've stuck through us for this whole podcast, if you stuck through us through all these episodes, you know, we harp on the MLS a lot, and a lot of it's well deserved. A lot of it is very well deserved, and we have fun doing it, and we really hope you guys have fun listening to it too, because it's, you know, we're very passionate about these things, and you probably can tell, and we hope if you're listening, you're passionate too, or if, you know, you haven't listened before, like you're becoming more passionate about the sport. And hopefully you're becoming more knowledgeable about it too. You're becoming more interested in learning more. You know, really all we're trying to do is just draw this attention to what's there. You know, the USL, the NISA, all those leagues that are sitting right there in front of our eyes. And, you know, to us who, you know, and I said it before, like it's frustrating at times. Yeah. Because, you know, we see the product, we understand the product, and it just seems so obvious. It's like 2 + 2. It just seems so obvious that it's 4. But for some reason, the MLS and other people keep trying to make it 5. And they keep trying to do things that, you know, they shouldn't be doing. You know, like developing a 3rd-tier league. Like, that doesn't have to be done. There's systems there. There's systems in place if you would just like allow it to like work together.
I mean, I think I saw, like, you know, just for example, I want to bring this up just because it kind of brings a little continuity. We talked about a while back Fort Wayne FC, which was DeMarcus Beasley's product or project. And they had their first game not that long ago. And I think they had like 4,000 or 5,000. I could be totally getting this wrong, but I think they had like 4,000 or 5,000 fans in the stadium, and they're a USL League 2 club. It just goes to show that there is a desire for this product all over the country, and whether that means getting rid of PLS or something, we've got to make a way for this for the cities, the areas where they want the most to rise up the ranks, to really, you know, the most passionate fan bases. I've mentioned them a million times, but I'm going to say it again. Detroit City, great example of this. Whatever you say about their fans, to rise up the ranks, because they've shown that they have the desire for it. It's a great product to put on TV. I don't care if you've got an MLS where it's one team playing in a 40,000 or 50,000 seat stadium and one team playing in an 8,000 seat stadium. If all those stadiums are full and those fans are having a great time, that is good for TV. That is good for the market.
It's good for the sport.
That is great for the sport. That's for a kid to hop on, you know, say he's sitting with his dad watching TV on a Saturday night and they're flipping through the channels and he sees, you know, look, they've got 2 options. They can turn on and look, Revs are doing great right now, so whatever. But they turn on the TV and they see a half full stadium, quarter full stadium. Not even half full. Kid's not going to want to play, go out there and play. He's going to think to himself, well, geez, that doesn't look very cool. I watch the NBA. I watch NFL. Those stadiums are full. That must be so fun to play in front of thousands of people. And they look like they're enjoying it. But if he goes and say that Colorado Switchbacks, they've got that new stadium that's about 6,000 to 8,000 people, and he sees a full stadium, he's not thinking about, Well, I think that's only about 6,000 or 8,000 people there. That seems like a very small stadium. That's not for me to play in. I'm 8 years old and I'm very perceptive. No, he's looking and he's seeing a fan base that's, they're swinging the flags, they're throwing smoke, and it's packed, and they're having a great time. And he goes, "That could be me one day."
Right,
and that's important.
I think I'm getting goosebumps right now hearing you talk about that, just because I think it's so important when we talk about the growth of the sport here in the United States. We keep talking about, like, how are we going to grow the sport when you have the NBA, when you have the ML, you have all these other sports competing against football or competing against soccer. I'll use the term soccer here because we're talking about here in the US.
Right.
But
when we go back to talking about Europe, we'll call it football again.
We'll call it football. But it's I get so afraid hearing about these things, that these MLS clubs, they're not going to care about developing sort of that community outreach in these areas that they put them in. In all these places, Detroit, city that you're talking about, Fort and Madison, Chattanooga, like all these places that have it already intertwined in the culture, like it's ready there to grow. It's ready there to, it's like a little bud of a flower. It's ready to be, just watered and just watch it grow into like this big flower. And I don't know. I get worried. I get nervous that, we're just going to lose that growth and that excitement around the sport if we, just kind of become a one league, system here in the United States with just the MLS.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. It's we've got a long ways to go. There's some choppy water ahead, I'll say. Yeah. But I think it's. I'm going to end it on a positive note. I think it's still inspiring to see. Look, we're in a new season right now, new MLS season. MLS is bigger and better than ever. There are caveats, of course, but long ways from where it was 20 years ago. We have got USL with, honestly, like even 5-6 years ago, I would not have imagined a second-tier league as strong and as stable.
Fingers crossed.
As the USL Championship. And we have 2 viable third division leagues with, obviously some clubs that are struggling, but some immaculate clubs and still growing and big ideas as well, especially if we're looking at NISA. The future is bright. It's just going to take the right people to kind of bring that future to fruition here and really make the most of the resources and the interest that we have here. And
definitely.
I know we didn't talk a lot about how these leagues are doing right now, where we are at
Where are we
in the season? But I think with this news that just came out, we really had to talk about that. There was no getting around that.
No.
So yeah, I think the future is bright. We've got a lot going for us. The men's team is look, the women's team is as dominant as ever. That is the landscape I still hope to see grow. We've got a long ways to go on that front. But the women's team looking great. Men's team got a lot of promise. I'm not going to say looking great yet. Just lost to Switzerland the other day, but a lot of promise. The club landscape growing like crazy. Like things are good. That we're at this point, this absolute turning point where we can either fuck it all up or we can just let it keep going. Let it keep growing.
Right. It's a very crucial point. And it's an even more crucial point, Cameron, for this podcast, because we have to say goodbye, I feel. We've kept you guys long enough. We thank you so much. Again, just thank you if you're a listener. If you were any one of those 400 listens we've had in the past, we really appreciate it. When Cameron and I started this about almost a year ago now, we're coming up on a year in another month or so.
Yep.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. We both really enjoyed the sport. We really enjoyed talking about this. And, it's something we enjoy talking about and discussing with you too, and kind of bringing these thoughts and ideas and these information and this news, and hopefully you have some fat laughs, you have some smiles, you have some tears,
fat laughs,
some fat laughs. But as always, guys, follow us on Twitter at Touchline Takes
or Instagram.
Touchline underscore. I think we're on underscore, and we've joined the underscore crew on Instagram. We're very interactive. Slip in our DMs, we'll answer. Tweet at us, we'll respond to you. We are very active with those things. Give us a like, subscribe to the podcast, do any of those things. Tell your parents about it, tell your siblings about it, tell your dog about it. Like, whatever you can do, get the word out if you enjoy us. If you don't enjoy us, well, you just keep your mouth shut then.
And once again, we've said this a million times. We should probably say this more at the beginning of the episode. We kind of always forget to do that. But look, we've interviewed people, and we love interviewing people who are deep in the culture, have stakes in teams. But we are just as willing to have a short conversation with a fan of XYZ club, because we want to know what you're thinking. We're two dummies with microphones, and we're willing to have a third dummy on. So if you want to be that dummy, hit us up.
Come on. And you got to bring the beer, though. We only ask if you're going to be that dummy, you got to bring the beer.
Yeah, figure it out.
Awesome. Well, Cameron, it's been real. Listeners, it's been real. See you later.